This is a $15 a child program. It's, it's like what happens when the doctors go off to Honolulu and get their weekend of training, except this happens in the community. Really strong early parenting, high quality early education. We've heard a lot about what that means and why it's important. I think it's a little bit dangerous to talk about 90% of brain development early on. Lots happens to kids later. This is not a danger of that as people start thinking of this as a use it or lose it proposition, and it's not. Lots can happen later on to change the arc of kids' lives. It just costs more. It's harder to do. Let me give you one example of, right here in Washington, one of my favorite early childhood programs. It's called the Rosemont Center. Some of you may know about the Rosemont Center. I see a nod or two in the audience. What makes it great, it's a brilliant program for 0 to 5. What makes it a brilliant program is half those kids are poor kids. They're there on Head Start, early Head Start money, and subsidies from the other half the kids who come from middle and upper middle class families. They're paying, as of last count, $12,000, $13,000 a year. Any of you with parents, and any of you who are parents in this area would be delighted to pay $12,000 a year for a really good preschool program. There's a waiting list in both ends of this universe. It brings kids together at an age when, we don't start by segregating rich and middle class and poor kids. Really good early education. Third, connect community supports with high quality, rigorous education. There is a silly, silly debate that goes on between the no excuses folks who say schools can do, they're going to do the 3 R's. That's what they can do. We're going to hold teachers, those lazy folks, get them to work hard, their noses to the grindstone, fire them if we don't like them. There's that. And then there's this claim that it's all about poverty and if you don't change the entire society, you're not going to have much of an impact. I don't think anybody in the national conversation about education thinks that what happens in the classroom, the quality of teaching, the rigor of the education doesn't matter. Everybody knows how important reading and math is. But you ask any teacher, and I've been hanging out for the last year, more or less, in a poor urban Latino school district in New Jersey, which is doing phenomenally by its kids. You ask any teacher, what are you doing? You gotta touch the hearts and souls and spirits of those kids. You can't just reach this. It's not going to work. It's not good for the kids. It's not going to produce the kind of outcomes that you want in both in test terms and in human terms. So when you think about school, we think about the schools that many of us went to, the 8 to 3, 9 to 3, 180 day a year school. Connecting those schools, and those are the one institution that exists in every community, schools and churches and libraries. That's what's there. That's what you gotta build on. So what's needed? You gotta bring healthcare into the schools. It's all well and good that there's a CHIP program, but if mom has gotta take a day off from work, or dad to take the kid to the doc, it's very hard to expect that to happen. You bring those docs, you bring the public health apparatus into the schools. You get the doctor there, not just the nurse who takes your temperature and calls mom, but the real honest-to-God doc. You get the dentist to show up. Third of kids in inner-city schools have uncorrected dental problems. 1.5 million school days a year lost, dental problems. You get the optometrists in, and by the way, all of those nice companies downtown, the big eye care companies, all those companies, they're great. They do the exams, they give away the glasses. Why do they do this? Well, because it's doing well by doing good. They're going to get customers all the rest of their lives. So you get 1/3 of the kids, and in inner cities, about 1/3 of the kids who have untreated asthma. So just think about it. If what you care about is academic rigor, and I sure do, if you can't see the blackboard and you're hurting and you're having a hard time breathing, it's going to be really difficult to start doing higher order thinking. Just sort of imagine yourself in that situation. So connecting schools with a whole variety of services, engage parents, give parents in the schools some of the things they need: citizenship education, English language courses, foreign language courses, cooking classes, whatever it is that community wants. Run the schools after school, run the schools in the summer. That's just it's not just a nice idea. Remember, any of you remember Bill Clinton's midnight basketball, which got derided so much? He was absolutely on the right path. We know this about after school. The number of hours that kids spend unsupervised after school is a better predictor of school failure than race or social class. And we know this about summers. Academically, poor kids, and by the way, I would say, as we heard earlier, don't bother writing this down, it's all in the book. We know this about summers. Poor kids academically do about as well as middle-class kids during the school year. It's summer that's the big unequalizer, because middle-class parents are figuring out stuff for their kids to do. A lot of poor kids wind up sort of on the streets, and they got to start again. They've fallen down the ladder. So this isn't just nice stuff. It's important stuff for kids' outcomes. Strong parenting support, really good early education, connect rigorous schooling with community. Get a champion in everybody's lives. You know, as Big Brothers Big Sisters tries to do for 500,000 kids, we can do for a lot more kids. It's a huge untapped population of people who are becoming, 10,000 people a day are turning 60. An untapped population. You ask those people, what do you want to do? You want to give back. Who do you want to give back to? Kids. This is this theme we've been hearing, whether from the polls, or from David Lawrence and the voters in Florida or wherever. It's about the kids. And what we know is that having another adult in a child's life can show, particularly an adolescent, other ways, other options, that a champion isn't going to replace the parent, but going to show the child things that he or she knows, going to introduce them to worlds that child may not be familiar with. And the outcome data, whether it's kids are happy, kids are going to school, kids are doing well in school, positive. The biggest impact, interestingly, is that kids and parents have a closer bond. And that surprised me when I first heard it, but think about it. Now there's somebody else for the kid to turn to, some other grown-up. The parent doesn't have to bear all the freight. It's a champion in kids' lives. And finally, a child savings account. We've had versions of the Aspire Act introduced in Congress for a number of years. Britain had such a system in place universally from 2000 until David Cameron's election in 2010. The model is you give every child a savings account, $500. You give poor kids, Pell Grant-eligible kids, $1,000 at the outset, and you allow those families to contribute for every $500 a year they contribute. For up to $500, the government matches that money. Why is that important? Because if you imagine the kind of system I've described, you've got kids who are in really good schools, having gotten strong parent support, really good early education. They've got somebody else having it. All of a sudden, they run up against the sticker shock of colleges. And poor kids are really good at seeing short-term costs, and it's very hard to think about long-term benefits. So the kid savings account both creates a nest egg. What's more important, it changes the calculus of decision within the family. Poor parents start thinking that about their kids' future, because now there's something to look forward to, and the kids start thinking about their own future. When you have studies done of children who are receiving that kind of, kiddie savings account support, you ask those kids about money, they're much more money savvy than other kids because they've got some money to be savvy about. They see those statements when they're 8, 10, 12 years old. They start looking at those statements that are coming in every quarter. How's my investment